So as a game developer, it always interests me to see what is going on in terms of the game space from the business perspective as well as the developer perspective. And so I saw this. It's kind of like a web comic that was posted recently. Now, originally it was written in Korean, but it got translated on the Asmongold uh, Reddit page, so that's where I got it from. And I just want to go through it because there's controversy all the time going around uh, games and new types of monetization schemes. And naturally, we're not personally always for these kind of predatory schemes, but it does say something about society and how often we actually give into it and play it. So, recently, I had a whole bunch of my students talk about how, oh yeah, they were into Genshin Impact, and it's a free game, but they end up spending more than if you were actually playing a buy to play game. Now I've played Final Fantasy for a long time. I recently quit, and I'm done with it forever. But that game only costs $15 a month, and that's the kind of money you would spend. You'd spend less on just one meal getting Ubered to you. So that's kind of like a good deal for me. Like when it comes to Final Fantasy, that was a good deal for the game. Of course, you have to pay the base game price and stuff in addition to the subscription. But for Genshin Impact, you get it totally free. But then if you want to get certain kind of characters, you got to wait for months. Unfortunately, you're gonna miss out on a whole bunch of different characters in that game. It's called a gacha game, so you got to put in money all the time in order to get. If you want to get them all, catch them all, kind of Pokemon style, you either gotta wait for another chance to get those characters, or if you want to keep ahead of the game, you're gonna put in a lot. You're gonna put in a lot. I think it's something like a, a guaranteed $200 gets you a character guaranteed or something. And so every 20 something days, if you put in $200, I mean, that's already way more than just if you're playing Final Fantasy and it's like, what is it, like 12, $15, depending on what you want. And then you pay like a dollar if you want more storage space, kind of like stuff like that. It's very economically sound. You get a lot of bang for your buck. And so I'm always pro Final Fantasy. I just quit just because it was just a huge time sink for me. But uh, yeah, let's just go to this article now to see what it's about. Now, keep in mind this person is a Korean game dev. It says, "Hi, I'm a game developer. Can't say who or where I work, but please understand my discretion. It seems there are a lot of gamers complaining about Korean games. They ripped off other games. Pay to win. So, this is why Korean games can't compete. It's always a rip-off or pay to win. Most of the complaints are pay to win or being unoriginal. So, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Let me tell you the TLDR first. That's too long, didn't read for anyone who doesn't know. Keep playing. Shh. So, I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to read this right to left. And so that's why it's a little bit confusing. I know you aren't convinced. Let me explain. Obviously, we are not as pure as Buddha. We are human, just like you. We gotta eat and pay the bills. Y'all agree? I do agree with it. This guy crying over this is correct. Or wrong. I don't know what this art means. I think they're both in the same category, which is why it's weird that they're separate. Actually, there were a lot of developers who wanted to put originality before profit. Idea, creative equals want. That's a Korean currency. Now, I agree. I've always tried to make original games. I've always tried to make kind of weird, funny cultural commentary games. I've never worried about the profits. But that's just me. I never cared about that. But you know what? I always find it more interesting that popularity, in terms of you wanting to get a message out, it hinges on the exact same thing that profiting does. So I've had games where and maybe had like 15,000 people play them. But on YouTube, you've had maybe 15 million people watching it. And so, uh, what people enjoy about something is not necessarily what you put into it necessarily. And there's even one of my games where a bug was actually way more hilarious than a lot of the jokes I put in the game. And there were a lot of jokes in that game, and a lot of those jokes hit really well. But there was a bug that I didn't test, I didn't notice because it's hard to test your own game. You don't look for all the weaknesses in your game. But I had this weird pickup mechanic where I jointed it to the body, and when you actually hit the collider, because I forgot to deactivate the colliders, when you hit it on the ground, your character shot up into the sky like a rocket. And so people were like, please do not touch this out of the game. And it was actually a lot of fun to watch a lot of the YouTubers. I laughed at pretty much every single person who did a Let's Play of that game. And so, yeah, there's a lot of times when you want to be original. And I personally, I just never cared about profits. I'm just not that type of person. But I know a lot of people, that's probably at the forefront of it. And for me, it's just like, yeah, I would like more people to play the games. That's the motivating thing to me, is to get views and to get players and to get stuff like that. But there were many times when you see customers working against their own interest as well. So I once had this Android game where it was making like $2,000 a month, right? And then what happened is that I said, "Hey guys, you asked me for a lot of stuff in these comments, so I'm going to start implementing them slowly." And then I started putting them in slowly. And then they were like, hey, this is incomplete. And then they started downloading the game. And so it went from something that usually had 4 to 5 stars, and it went down to something that had 1 stars. And then I had no more new installs. And then the game lost profits. And then suddenly it wasn't profitable to work in the game anymore. So you just had to cancel the project because it didn't make anything after that. It went down to like $100 a month. And so that was immediately following just the bad rating. And so sometimes the customers work against themselves. Okay, so now it says most of us in the industry had that dream, and they took their creative games to the market. So these creative and not play to win games should be popular, right? At least you gamers of all should know that. But then they all failed. And let me tell you something, creative games cannot make it in the Korean gaming market. Even if we make a creative and original game you demanded. Really, is no one caring. Normies who don't follow deep into these gaming news would never even hear about these games. There were a lot of attempts. Now, to some degree, yes, you're right. To some degree, yeah, gamers do work against themselves in this way. But on the other hand, even I can accept that I'm not that great of a game developer. And that's just one of the bad qualities that has to do with making games or making YouTube videos. Even the second worst, and probably the most important one, is I'm really bad at marketing as well. And so a lot of these game developers, I'm sure that a lot of the issue they have is with marketing. So this guy is trying to make a claim that certain games he made didn't take off because they were just plainly original. Doesn't mean they were good games. Not every game that's original means it's a game that people want or they're good. I would like to see that as evidence. This guy's just kind of telling us what it is, but he's not really showing us. There are many games that start off small and they have an inkling of a spark, and those games take off. And some of them are homages to original other types of games, so they're not original. But some of them are wholly original, and people just like to see something. But there is something that you can put into it, like some kind of retro throwback, whether it's graphics, whether it's saying this is inspired by this or that. And the truth is, a lot of gamers, I mean, do they really want to make completely original games? Or do they just want to make original ideas, stories, or their own IPs and stuff? So I'm not entirely sold on what he's saying here. It is a lot of just your own thing. Results were all the same. They all shut down soon. And although another thing is, was this guy working for himself, and is he now working for a big corporation that can, sell a game to all their connected industry leads and stuff? Yeah, the gaming industry is pretty bad. It's very incestuous. When IGN used to talk kind of proudly about how they'd have parties every Friday where developers would come out, they'd give them freebies, and developers would give freebies to the journalists. And I'm like, that's a conflict of interest. Why are these game industries and developers working so closely? There should be a separation. You also shouldn't get free review copies, if you know what I'm saying. Like I said before, we are humans too. No profit, studio goes down, we don't get paid. Yeah, and some of that has to do with also if you're pitching your game. Yeah, there are corporate overlords that just basically only understand metrics. And unfortunately for metrics, they're not very good at taking risks. It's always someone else who has to take a risk before a big company takes a risk, which is weird because the people who can foot those kind of risks are big companies. But unfortunately, uh, they have responsibilities to other investors, to people who work for them and have to get a constant salary, right? And so you kind of understand why they're not big risk takers is because they have big responsibilities. Whereas small people, if you take a risk, you take on a lot of personal responsibility for it. And so many times I've, worked on a game and it was just kind of a tech demo and it didn't take off, but I thought it was a good idea and it just didn't work. And so you can never get funding a lot of the times, just because it's up to you to take that risk. And sometimes you'll hit something and you'll say, "Oh, it's really worth it." And then sometimes a tech demo is not enough either, and you have to take a real risk and develop the full game. Now, personally, I can't foot the full game. Like it takes a long time to do content. A tech demo you can do in like a week or 2 weeks. I'm all about those game jams. But some people they uh, they want to have someone believe in them a little bit too much, and a lot of developers are like that. There are many times when I've done free code work and free art for people who were trying to do their own indie projects, and those guys never took off. And so eventually, you just stop. You have no faith in these people because a lot of them are not self starters, self finishers, myself included, to be honest. But there are many times you can have faith in people and they just don't deliver it because they're just not those people. They just want a free blank check to do what they want to do. But the truth is, if something is really really hot, really great, and you know it, and you're motivated to finish it, then that's just what you got to do. You got to put in your own time and effort. How do we get to this point? The result of making games that gamers wanted is going broke. Well, we can't just go out like this either. So let's take a look at my buddy, who is huge in the industry. So now he has to look at his buddy, not necessarily himself. Ta-da! He puts in everything you don't like in the game. Always rips off other games, upgrades, boosters, loot boxes, random chances, and guaranteed. Of course, people complain, but he doesn't care. But his games sell very well. Yeah, humans have an addictive personality. It's actually in our DNA to be addicted to certain things and certain feedbacks, right? And even if you're a spiritual person, it's spiritually one of our kind of like a karmic sin. I mean, sins themselves, you know what a sin is? Sin has to do with missing the mark on living a proper life. And that means not giving into your temptations all the time. Most sins are just temptations that cause you to uh, lead your life in a false way that hurts you. And so, what is lust? Lust is wanting a woman so bad you're gonna cheat on a woman. You're gonna cheat on your wife. You're gonna get that woman to cheat on someone. Those are sins, sins that cause you to do harm. Now, there's nothing wrong with lusting after a single woman, but you're gonna if you sin so hard, if you're so tempted that you break rules of society, that is what the sin is. So I like to think of I like to put it in perspective like that. Hey, this food is great. It's great to eat a lot of good food. Now, when you eat so much that you can't, you start gaining weight, or you can't control yourself, that becomes a sin because now you're harming yourself and your society. And so that's the difference between a sin and just like regular actions and just things. And the problem with a lot of people is that yeah, we're predisposed to do this stuff. We become addictive. We have addictive personalities. And so that's why we have alcohol, gambling, all this stuff. It's in our genetics, and it's up to us to take personal responsibility for it. His games sell very well. Gamers Don't care about them. It's not them that pays us. Wouldn't you get paid more if you make games for paying customers? What a joke. Who would want to play that kind of a copycat gambling garbage? Hey, buddy, you still not get it? I'm having a hard time understanding this guy's translations. Uh, the guy who translated it, it seems like they should have done a better job. I'm not sure if the original guy spoke like this. We have consumers that pay for this kind of shit. That's why I stayed in the biz for all this time. Well, don't beat yourself over it. It's not our fault, is it? We are dogs. We gotta wag our tails for our master and do what they want. Your pride doesn't feed you. It's true. Pride is what gets in the way of a lot of things. Like I said, I'm bad at marketing, and that's because, I don't like going to, Facebook or Twitter and then paying for an ad space. I don't like going into people's comment sections and saying, "Hey, play my game, watch my video." It's actually demeaning to some sense, but that's just an issue of my pride, and I'm well aware of it. I'm totally, completely aware of it. I don't delude myself otherwise. And you know what? I choose to not do it that much because I still don't like it, and that's just my prerogative. But if you want to be successful, obviously you would do stuff like that, and many people do stuff like that. And I compromise in some ways too. So a lot of people, if you want to get ahead, you got to put your pride out of the way. Pride is one of those sins. It's okay to have pride, but in the sense that you got to value your self integrity to some degree. But you can go too far to a point where it's a detriment to yourself. And like I said in the past, one of the things I regretted is not being better at marketing, because if I could reach more people, then when I'm doing activist work or when I'm making political commentary, things that I think has value, then you could reach more people. And there's a sense of responsibility there as well to put your pride out of the way. So he's saying he was right. We are dogs and owned by the consumers. Well, not really. It just depends on what you're willing to compromise on, right? So what do? I work in other industries. I do other stuff on the side. I teach. And so we have stuff like that helps us pay bills on the side. I had a whole business for 15 years that, because of COVID restrictions and lockdowns, I watched in the first half of the year as I lost 2/3 of my business. And then by the second half, 1/3 vanished into thin air. And, that was a lot of income that just vanished in thin air. And so, yeah, sometimes you got to go through that, and it just happens to you. And what do you got to do on the side? You got to find some way. You got to find somewhere else. You got to help, ask for help sometimes too. And so that's where I am right now. I'm looking for uh, other ways to get ahead, and I'm making very small compromises. But if I was a more unscrupulous person, maybe I would be a dog to the consumer and do more stuff. Like, you ever see someone start making weird thumbnails on their YouTube videos, and you're like, that's kind of cringy and weird, but I'm sure it does work for a huge segment of the population. Um, or someone's like, oh, I'm gonna do whatever is popular right now instead of just what interests me. And so some people just do that, and some people they may make commentary on things, and it's not even something they're genuinely interested in, nothing they've actually genuinely researched, and they just want to put out daily, 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 daily. And so I'm personally never gonna want to do that. I'm only ever do what interests me. So that's just me personally. We got to go do what our consumers want. So that's what he feels. That's what he thinks. Now, me personally, if someone doesn't like my content, I do want them to unsubscribe. I don't want them to be stuck getting blasted in my videos. I make a lot of offensive content, so I would understand if someone doesn't want to follow it. But of course, I think that it's more nuanced than just simply offensive. And I think that I would like to reach people and have them understand more about what I talk about. By the way, another compromise I made is I still have this channel up. My original channel got shut down, but I also bringing this channel back here, which I haven't worked on for 3 years. I'm also working on a side channel, which is not approved by YouTube. YouTube will not approve most of those videos. And so I put them on another channel. So continuing, he says, do you get it now? We are not forcing pay to win and shit because we hate gamers. We can see and hear your complaints very well. So what? Don't play if you don't like. We don't care if you stop playing because you don't like gambling and ripoffs. We have consumers that do like gambling and don't mind ripoff games. They make us like that. It all comes down to consumers' choice. Not playing games don't kill you. Few people said we might have the second Atari shop, but I don't care. I've heard for 10 years and no signs of it at all. We don't care about your complaints. Yeah, you do. You do care about the complaints. And you know what? Gamers, they're going to complain and they're going to continue to play games and do things that contradict themselves. And they have a right to do that. So this guy claiming, you guys, we don't care about your complaints. I'm trying to be an asshole to you and trying to make you look bad. No, the consumers always come out top because it's their money. They're feeding. It's you are the one who's making the compromise, right? The consumer is always right. The customer is always right. Sometimes your content is not right for them. The customer is still always right. Play something else. I'm not stopping you. Play LOL or WoW or play Dota or buy to play games. Yeah, they're doing that. And if they want to play your game and complain about it, they can do that too. I wouldn't hold it against them. And I don't know why you're being so weird about it. We get paid by the customers that like gambling and don't care about ripoffs and still pay tons of money. Yeah, you do. And you know what? You also get paid by customers that don't like gambling and do care about ripoffs and don't want to pay a lot of money, but they still do because they need something to do. They're gamers. It's their hobby. They enjoy it. Even if minimally they wish that you did better. So he says, we like it better than listening to your bitching. Well, guess what? You're going to get both and you're going to have to live with it. Can't hear you. Obviously, you can. You put a lot of effort into a comic about it. We are not bad. We did nothing wrong. Of course you're bad. Of course you did something wrong. You compromised. You sinned. And so obviously you're doing something wrong and the consumers are doing something. And you know what? That's just humanity. Humanity is screwed up and they're weird and messed up. And that's the way they are. And you're going to have to live with it and stop being weird about it. You made it like this. Yeah, they made it like this. And you were part of the equation. Never pretend like you're the victim when you're taking the money. The end. So that was the video. So this is a comic. It's very interesting read if you're into that kind of stuff. This guy, I think he's kind of deluded a little bit by his personality, his own self belief, because here he's trying to justify his selling out, right? But really, the customers are wrong and the developers are wrong. There's no getting away around that. And it's kind of this holier than thou attitude where someone's trying to say, oh, yeah, look at me. I am the bad guy, but you made me this way. Nope. We made each other this way. And yeah, it would be nice if gamers had a little bit more integrity and didn't support that stuff. But at the end of the day, gamers game and there's lots of games to try and there's lots of complaints to be made because gamers like to complain as well and they have a right to complain and complaining is speech is one of the most valued things that people can have. Now I am personally actually not a free speech absolutionist. Like some people are free speech absolutists. I didn't mean to say absolutionists just now, but some people are free speech absolutists, and a lot of people are that way, and they're like, "Oh yeah, free speech no matter what." I'm actually not a free speech absolutist. I do believe in blasphemy. I do believe that there's a slippery slope if you let certain people say harmful things that contradict you. I'm a truth absolutist, and I'm also against hypocrisy, which is why I'm kind of harsh on this guy as well. And so that's where I come from. I do not like people using hypocrisy. Now, I wouldn't do anything personally to shut them down. I'm just saying that I will speak out against them. But I do want to get people to start being less hypocritical, being more people of integrity. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I have to say about it. So yeah, if you like this kind of a video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment in the comment box down below. Give a sub if you're into this kind of content. I'll do more of it based on the metrics. And yeah, I guess this is just one of those things where I'm not going to compromise and try to do what this guy did, obviously. And if you want to support it, maybe you can prove him wrong as well. So I'll see you in the next video.